Hello, everybody. Talmar Anderson, Boss Actions here. And today we're talking about those parting words from your exiting employees. Whew. When they leave, it might not be too terrible. It might be very dramatic. There's ways to control those situations so they don't get too out of hand. But some really know how to really dig that knife in and turn it, even if they're leaving of their own volition or they're just covering for the fact that they couldn't do the job. And that's usually what a lot of the motivation is. So I want to talk to you bosses about the idea that when somebody is going to give you feedback on the way out, 100% listen. I mean, to an extent. If they're just complaining and getting belligerent, then that should be ended. That's a different topic. But when we're talking about you have that moment and you're saying, okay, what could I have done better? Or maybe they're leaving of their own volition. Maybe they've been down that performance review and yet they are still leaving officially under a resignation as opposed to a termination. They might take the time to let you know how you can improve. And while golly, you want to believe they have your best interests at heart, I got to tell you, they do not oftentimes. They are hurt. They're upset. They might be disappointed at themselves. But at the end of the day, something wasn't occurring in the job and the communication and the expectations that were set that makes them feel like they didn't have everything exactly the way they wanted. Now, there are times when I need you to be really listening and documenting and keeping track of this. But what I want you to do the very first time somebody says something, and if they call you a name that personally hurts you, right? So many of you great business bosses out there, really, you care about people and you give and you try to be considerate in the way you communicate, in the way you schedule, and the way you set up a job. You're really trying to be out there and help people be successful. But not all of our employees are as as gracious as you are and considering of others' feelings. Some of them are just darn upset, frustrated, and it's not exactly the way they wanted. So they don't have the capacity to really consider giving the kind of feedback that would help you as a boss later on. They're more trying to pick you apart. So, a couple of little things. If somebody calls you a micromanager on the way out, consider if you might have gone through a performance plan improvement with them. So that's where if somebody's making a mistake, they're underperforming, and you decide that it's time to sit them down and say, hey, you're not crossing the T high enough. I need it to be at the very top of the line, not almost at the line, not just below the line, actually on top of the line. That's how we do it here. That's how you'll find success. I need you to do it like that all the time, right? Somebody who's been caught not performing, somebody who isn't a details person, even though we let them know that was part of the job responsibility, somebody that just was being held accountable to what was required for success in that job, they're likely to call you a micromanager on the way out. Maybe you are, but maybe you're not. If this is the first time anyone has ever given you this feedback, it's likely that you were holding them accountable to a job that they were not great at. The details, the expectations, the communication, whatever the thing was that you were asking them to improve upon, they're going to use that word micromanager at you when really you're saying, look, I need you to perform the job correctly. So there's certain words that they'll use, and definitely want you to hear it, but don't let it make you sick to your stomach or stress out or worry that, or take that into all of your communications. If it's the first time this has happened, then we're going to actually say, maybe this person was just upset and wanted to lash out at me because this isn't ending the way they wanted it to. And that can happen even with somebody that's quitting. They oftentimes are quitting because they see the writing on the wall. So just note it if they mention it. Now, if this is a pattern, if you have had more than one employee, 3 is a good number. When you've heard it the third time, it's time to really look at your habits and the way that you're communicating and the way you're delegating or not delegating, and say, am I really a micromanager? A great coach, a mastermind group, some peers, another business owner that you could talk it through, and you could get some experience shares that can really help in those situations. But be mindful that if it's the first time somebody calls you a word and you're like, am I really this person? And am I really, you know, I have absolutely no examples in my brain right now. If you're really, I always think of the bad words, but let's say that they don't say that. They use you a word that you're overbearing. You're really just overbearing, and you come down so harsh on us, and you're just on top of us all the time. And literally, no one has ever used that word to describe you. That person likely is lashing out. Until you've heard it that third time, don't let it get into your head and play those mind games with you, boss. If your team is happy and functioning and you have this one person on their way out, that is not a sign that you are an overbearing boss. It is likely them lashing out. However, if you hear it a second time and a third time, there is something in your communication style. There is something in the way that you're being perceived. And even though your intention is not to be overbearing, it is worth looking at that pattern that we're seeing now, that more than one person has had the same experience with you in the way that you're managing, to suggest that that's something that you need to change. One time, first of all, we're allowed to make a mistake. You're a boss, you're a human, and that's okay. One time, don't take it so heavy on your heart. Let it go off your back a little bit. Note it and watch if that's coming back at you in your one-to-ones with your team, or if anyone else is using that expression in the way you communicate. Look for that as a pattern, and then you can go, maybe there's something here I need to shift. But don't be so hard on you. Exiting interviews, exiting team members, they're hurt. Even if it's their decision, they couldn't live up to your standards and they couldn't do the job, and it wasn't what they wanted it to be. So they don't feel like they're leaving on a great note oftentimes, and they will have a tendency to take it out on you. I know it's not fair. I know it's not fun, but you know in your heart that exiting an employee is the right thing for your business. So take that to heart and know that your team got more solid with this person going on to whatever their future is going to hold. All right. Boss on.